Hello and welcome to the session on homeschooling in India. Learning is a process of active engagement with experience which may involve an increase in skills, knowledge and understanding, values or the capacity to reflect. Effective learning will lead to change, development and a desire to learn more. In India, from the early 20th century, many educational theorists discussed and implemented different forms of education. In the recent years, many new alternatives were also found out. Many innovative and informal learning methods have been set up in the country. These models are not striving to be schools and are educating people successfully. Formal school education is the most common form of learning. School learning is considered to be full of regulation and order. It believes in necessity of the following: compulsory attendance, which demands that children spend large amount of time in the institution where they are learning; fixed curriculum chosen by the board under which students are learning; focus on children's inability to meet their standards, for which they are also tested against other children studying with them. In today's scenario in India, most of the parents are working and being a nuclear family becomes more difficult for them to look into the matters of their children. So, most people living in nuclear families take the option for homeschooling for their children. Homeschooling is a form of alternative education that is provided to children at home by parents or by tutors instead of sending them to public or private schools. Home learning or home instruction means instruction or learning, at least some of which is through planned activity. Before the introduction of compulsory school education laws, most children took education within their family or community. Homeschooling in India is prominent only in urban cities like Chennai, Bangalore, Kolkata, Mumbai, Pune, New Delhi, etc. Home based learning for children in India is offered by various agencies also for the purpose of promoting education. Some of these agencies are in the form of associations, support groups, forums, education providers, etc. Still, some agencies provide education facilities through internet. Some of the parents prefer giving education at home as they desire to have more direct control over their children's education. Homeschooling under the RTE Act. The Right to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009 section 18 had not recognized any other mode of imparting education except the one through formal schooling earlier. The act stipulated 8 years of formal education for all children between 6 and 14 years of age. The legality of homeschooling in India have been debated by educators, lawmakers and parents since the passing of the RTE that makes education a fundamental right of every child. Homeschoolers and alternative schools in India had petitioned the government in favor of the parent's right to choose the form of his child's education ever since the RTE became law. The government in September 2010 reversed its earlier stand. Homeschooling has become legal in India now. Then Minister of Human Resource Development Kapil Sibal officially recognized and affirmed homeschooling as a legal educational option in all over India. He also stated that the purpose behind the compulsory education requirements of the RTE Act is for every child to be in school. The Act requires the state to ensure that reasonable quality education exists for all children in all sections of society, especially the poorest and most deprived sections. Minister Kapil Sibal also ensured that the Act will not compel school attendance when parents have decided that the best form of education for their child is instruction in the home. The government had clarified that parents interested in homeschooling their children or adapting alternate forms of education outside the formal education may continue to do so. It was also clarified that the RTE Act would not come in the way of such alternate schooling methodologies or declares such form of education as illegal. Methods of homeschooling in India. In India, many methods are used in homeschooling. Some of them are Montessori method, unschooling, radical unschooling, Waldorf education and school at home method. Since options for home education is varied, the parents find it difficult to decide which would suit their family the best. The Montessori method was created by Maria Montessori, the first women physician in Italy. The method was not designed for homeschooling. The primary goal of Montessori education is to assist the child's development towards independence in the society within which he or she lives. In this method, the child is provided a carefully planned and prepared environment in which he has the freedom within limits to do as he wishes. The unschooling method originated in the 1960s by John Holt. In this method, the child is free to learn at his own pace, guided by his own interests. According to John Holt, a parent only needs to allow the child to direct his own learning through his interests and provide the child with educational experiences and materials. The philosophy behind the unschooling approach is that the child learns and retains much more when allowed to follow interests, share in real life experiences and exploration. Thus, unschooling plainly means homeschooling without the school part. Radical unschooling is a step further from unschooling. It just does not give freedom, but also refrain from setting limits in an area of life. The Waldorf method of homeschooling was developed by an Austrian philosopher and metaphysicist, Rudolf Steiner, in the year 1920. This method was developed based on his views on child development. He advocated a strong arts and movement based teaching style. Waldorf's pedagogy distinguishes three broad stages in child development, each lasting approximately 7 years. The early years focus on providing practical activities and environment that encourage creative play. The next stage focuses on developing his artistic expression and social capacities, fostering both creative and analytical modes of understanding. The third one focuses on developing critical understanding and fostering idealism. The school at home method is extremely similar to regular public school in teaching methods, curriculum, grading and other aspects. The only difference is that the child is taught at home rather than a school. This method is the best option for parents who are looking for a lot of structure in the system of education for their children. If a student is intelligent enough and can independently handle things, he can take to self study. Some of them use practical method and routine based activities to learn. For example, speaking, writing and reading are taught through practical methods. Personalized study is another method for home learners. Here, the parents opt not to follow a structured timetable or a prescribed course. They opt for those subjects that interest their children the most. The methods used by such home learners are CDs, games, magazines, television programs, educational websites, etc. There are fixed rules to home education in India. The home program varies greatly from family to family. If a parent has decided to carry out a child's education at home, they will definitely have to take resort of private tutors, or else the parent will have to take the full responsibility to teach them. If they do so, the parents should know how to go about teaching their children in the right way. Some of them will even need training on teaching methods. One factor that is known to be extremely important to educating a child effectively is the teacher to student ratio, that is, the number of students for which a teacher is responsible. Next attempt should be in taking care of securing adequate funds, choosing curriculum, etc. The parents should be keen in determining the gradation and progress of the child. If the child wants to appear for the examination, the parent should use a curriculum. This may be one that is prescribed by National Institute of Open Schooling or NIOS, or International General Certificate of Secondary Education, or IGCSE. Children taking home education can also take examinations as private candidates at regular schools also. The parents can also design their own curriculum by referring to syllabi of many boards that conduct examinations. Some families who prefer home based schooling or learning follow formal lesson plans. Some families use a very traditional approach which includes schedules and lesson plans that look exactly like those used in formal schools. Some adhere to the philosophy of late John Holt. John Holt was a teacher, writer and early home advocate. According to his philosophy, the children can take their own time in expressing their interest in anything. This type of education is a very informal setting. Some other families who do homeschooling enroll their children in correspondence schools and allow them to attend part-time classes in these schools. There are part-time schools in India run exclusively to take care of the purpose of serving homeschoolers. In countries like United States of America, homeschooling is quite popular and the learners are given enough choice and freedom to choose among the most appropriate option. This makes learning more effective. In homeschooling, it is very important to create a weekly schedule that fits the needs of the children. This method would allow doing things without the constraint of a traditional classroom schedule. National Institute of Open Schooling or NIOS. NIOS is a board of open schools in India. Children who has taken up homeschooling can use the NIOS to take examinations for their secondary and higher secondary levels. All they need to do is to register themselves a year before they would want to take up the examination. Certification provided by the NIOS has the same recognition as other boards and are valid for competitive exams. International General Certificate of Secondary Education or IGCSE. IGCSE is an internationally recognized qualification for school students of age group 15 to 16 years. IGCSE is a globally recognized qualification conducted for class 10 levels. IGCSE is conducted by two boards, Cambridge International Examination CIE and EDEXCEL. The examination is similar to that conducted by examination of the CBSE and ICSE. A student can appear for the IGCSE examinations as a private candidate through the process of registration. Indian Association of Homeschoolers. The Indian Association of Homeschoolers is known as SOSHIKSHAN. SOSHIKSHAN is a non-profit initiative of homeschooling children. The members of this association include homeschoolers residing in India irrespective of nationality and location. There are some supporting organizations that favor homeschooling method in India. The most important among them is Homeschool Legal Defense Education or HSLDA. It is a non-profit advocacy organization working for the education of children at home, parents, guardians and friends. Other organizations that support homeschooling include IGCSE, Pune Homeschoolers Group, etc. The main objectives of HSLDA are the following: to act as a unified body to support and empower the rights of homeschoolers in India, to advocate the right of a child to learn in a healthy environment, to help homeschoolers in India from any kind of discrimination, to guide and counsel the parents of all homeschooling children, to help home learners to take age appropriate examinations for admission to colleges. Advantages of homeschooling in India. Any system of education has its advantages and disadvantages. Hence, it is necessary to consider carefully the possibilities of it. The advantages of homeschooling depend on the person who is teaching the student, their circumstances and their ability to teach them. Some of the advantages of homeschooling are the following: flexible timetable. Most homeschool children have the choice to study and learn what they want. Flexible timetable of studies for education is the first and foremost advantage. The children get time and pace to learn and grasp everything slowly at home. The parents can adjust the timetable of their kids according to their schedule, so that they can spend time pursuing their area of interest with friends and other activities. So, the biggest advantage of homeschooling is flexible timetable. Control over curriculum. Control over curriculum is another plus point in homeschooling. The curriculum can be tailored to the child's current interest. The parents can include those topics that can make an interest in their children. Interest creates intrinsic motivation to learn. This leads to quicker grasp of concepts and information. Children who are interested in what they learn retain much more material. Because homeschool is focused on children as individuals, a child's education is tailored to her capability. Efficient use of time provides a balance between play, sports, downtime, activities and book work for children. Cooperation rather than competition. In homeschooling, the child competes with himself. Emphasis and attention shifts to each child's forward progress. Child is free from external problems, peer pressure, bullies, etc., which are always a part of typical school days. Children learn to work cooperatively with siblings rather than competitively with classmates, a skill more valued in the workforce. More attention from parents. Children get more attention from their parents. Many homeschooling parents report that they can take the responsibility for their children's education and find out how they learn what is important in their lives. Many homeschooling families find that this process is helping them find time to foster loving ties between family members. Teens seems to benefit enormously from this process. Their rebellious behavior often begins to diminish soon after homeschooling begins. Pace of learning. Pace of learning is another advantage in homeschooling. How long the child can spend over a subject is up to his or her judgment and according to his or her capacity. In homeschooling, it is flexible to make the schedule of the curriculum work with one's own lifestyle and pattern. If a child excels in an area, his education in that area can be accelerated. If he struggles in some area, additional resources can be brought to bear to help. Concepts can be covered when the child is ready for them rather than when the school wants to present them. He can go in any speed he wishes, breezing through the concepts he understands and takes more time to master concepts he finds difficult. Another advantage is that because the parent is intimately involved with the student over that student's life, the parent understands the child's experiences and background. Homeschool children can accomplish in a few hours what takes a typical classroom a week or more to cover. Prime concern of safety issue is solved in home learning method. Homeschooling keeps children away from forces that may be corruptive. Homeschooling children are free from exam phobia. Many parents find that homeschooling provides the opportunity to incorporate their religious beliefs into their daily lives. Homeschooling is done largely on a one-on-one basis. So, there can't be a better teacher to student ratio in any type of learning system. Because a homeschooled child's education is managed by the same person over a long period of time, that education can be consistent with a long term plan. Disadvantages of homeschooling in India. Lack of socialization is the biggest disadvantage in homeschooling process. It is in the school that a child learns to interact freely with an unknown child or an adult. Students will have limited involvement in team activities. Problems of isolation is also possible because of less social interaction. This might affect their ability to develop the correct coping mechanisms required. Expense to hire tutor, buy books and other materials is another major concern in a homeschooling method. Homeschoolers need to buy a number of resources to supplement their learning, which is more expensive than going to a formal school. Parents will have to struggle with balancing demands of housework, running errands, chauffeuring and for pair work with the challenging task of homeschooling. Since money is a big issue in homeschooling, parents will tend to cut too many corners with their children's education. Because of lack of proper tools, children's education suffers greatly. Homeschooling can absorb a substantial amount of time of the parent. The parent will have to be in contact with the child without little relief. Family, friends, neighbors, guests, strangers, etc. give resistance on your methods, philosophy and lifestyle if you choose to homeschool your children. Parents will have to give justification to the family and friends who will oppose the decisions to homeschool children. In conclusion, although children may be legally forced to sit through more than a decade of order and regularity that a formal school demands, not a single administrator of any school can guarantee any form of actual learning. And a school system go about educating children by delivering answers. As a part of the necessary regulation, a curriculum determines which answers are to be delivered at a specific time using children's age as a guide. There are so many parents who feel that it is difficult to thrive in the conventional system. More and more cases arise in our country where parents take the formal school systems to task for failing to educate their children. Due to modern experience and popularity of homeschooling, increasing number of parents prefer adapting the system. But before considering taking this gigantic step, the parents will have to seek counsel. One of the most common mistakes that families make at home learning is that they start to homeschool their children without having enough knowledge to start a homeschool program effectively. Such parents tend to prescribe a completely inappropriate curriculum for their children. Wise is the parent who learns what his requirements are and then explores the possibilities to provide the best academic program for his child within the boundaries of law. It would be good if they discuss with at least 2 homeschooling families about its advantages and disadvantages. If there is a homeschool support group, it is important to meet them to understand about a well rounded homeschool program. Parents should take achievement tests to determine the grade of the achievement or performance level and area of deficiency of the children. Success demands organization, setting up of goals and the completion of them following a pre-designated time schedule at a pre-designated place. Many colleges and universities have begun to modify their admission practices to not only allow for, but also to encourage homeschoolers to apply for admission. Since homeschoolers are not required to register with any government bodies, there are no official numbers of how many homeschool students are in India. India has a total population of over 1 billion with roughly a third of its citizens under the age of 14. So, the opportunity for a robust homeschool movement is strong. In recent months, homeschooling appears to be a growing choice of parents. Homeschoolers in India have actively pursued organizing themselves via online means as well as working to gain favorable media attention. Let us summarize what we have discussed so far. Formal school learning is considered to be full of regulation and order. It believes in necessity of compulsory attendance, fixed curriculum, ability of the child to learn in things in a fixed time, etc. In today's scenario in India, most of the parents are working and being a nuclear family becomes more difficult for them to look into the matters of their children. Such parents opt for homeschooling their children. Homeschooling is a form of alternative education that is provided to children at home by parents or by tutors instead of sending them to public or private schools. Homeschooling in India is prominent only in urban cities like Chennai, Bangalore, Kolkata, Mumbai, Pune, New Delhi, etc. There are advantages and disadvantages of homeschooling in India. This is discussed in detail in the chapter. Moreover, the various precautions and rules that parents have to keep while educating their children at home is also talked about in the chapter. Due to modern experience and popularity of homeschooling, increasing number of parents prefer adapting the system. But ultimately, the chapter says that wise is the parent who learns what his requirements are and then explores the possibilities to provide the best academic program for his child within the boundaries of law. Here are a few questions for you. How is school learning different from home learning? What are the advantages of homeschooling in India? What are the disadvantages of homeschooling? What are the basic rules and regulations that a formal school considers necessary? How does NEOS promote the method of home learning in India? What are the precautions that a parent should take before homeschooling his child? What change did the RTE Act make in the legality of homeschooling in India? Hope that you may refer these books for further understanding. The Ultimate Book of Homeschooling Ideas by Linda Dobson, published by Postprint in the year 2008. Homeschooling for Excellence, written by David and Mickey Colfax, published by Warner Books, New York in the year 2009. Homeschooling, Political, Historical and Pedagogical Perspectives, written by Jane Van Galen and Mary Ann Pittman, published by Ablex Publishing Corporation, New Jersey in the year 1991. You have decided to homeschool, now what? Written by Marsha Hubler, published by Master Books Inc., Green Forest 2007. Hope that you have enjoyed this topic. We can meet again with another topic. Thank you.